Okay, welcome back to the workshop. Good to see you all. Big thumbs up there in whatever direction. Right, just a quick one. Thanks very much for all your subscriptions, comments, thumbs ups, likes and all the rest of it. Thank you very much indeed, it's much appreciated. Right, moving on rapidly, brakes. Now then, as you can see, these calipers off the ZZR have been done. We've given them a lick of paint, we've given them a thorough clean. But what I just did want to have a word with you about before we start putting these together is what they look like before you start. Now, you'll quite often find that brakes seize up for whatever reason. They don't work, they cease to work. You don't get the power from the brake doesn't release, it binds. Right, I just wanted to show you this, what I found in the shed. I don't know if you can see that very well on camera. I'll try and get it as close as I can. Now you can see there that corrosion in that groove and the corrosion in the groove there, and corrosion in that groove and corrosion in the low groove. Well, the upper groove is the same on this caliper as it is on the ZZR calipers. It's a dust seal. The lower groove is the main seal for the hydraulics, and you can see the crud in there, white powdery stuff. Okay, that's aluminium corroding. That's what happens when aluminium corrodes. Now, a lot of people don't realise this, but when you're doing a brake caliper, you've got your grooves, if you can see them. I don't know if you can see them very well, I'm doing my best. There we go. You've got your grooves, you've got your upper groove, which is your dust seal, and your lower groove, which is your main seal on this particular type of caliper. Now then, this caliper looks something like the one I've just showed you, which is off something completely different. Well, we ain't going to go there, but that's off something else, is that. But what happens is, these grooves, they get corrosion in them, as you've just seen. Right, well, you have a rubber seal that goes in these grooves. There's your rubber seal for your dust cover. Now, that goes inside that top groove there. Okay. What happens is, the corrosion forms on the aluminium bit in the groove and forces that rubber seal against the piston and traps it. So what tends to happen is, the first thing you'll notice about the brakes when you're applying them is that you squeeze the brake and it applies, and then you release the brake and it binds. It binds or it doesn't release properly. Well, this is a symptom of corrosion in calipers, which is why it's crucial to keep these grooves clean and service them regularly. Be careful when you're washing your bike that you don't end up with water all over your brakes, because obviously water in these grooves forms corrosion. Right. Got that out of the way. So, a couple of things. First of all, I'll do a couple of things here that you'll have not seen me do before, and there'll be a few of you out there shouting at the camera saying you don't do it like that. Well, this, like I've said, this isn't the way, this is just my way. It's what experience has taught me with brakes over the years. So, without further ado, I'll put that caliper to one side and we'll start putting this one together. Right, I tend to use an awful lot of rubber grease. People say you should soak these seals in brake fluid before you fit them. Now, we've just talked about corrosion. A lot of people don't realise brake fluid is hygroscopic. Well, hygroscopic means that this rubber seal here, when it's coated in brake fluid, it will absorb moisture out of the atmosphere, out of the surrounding air, because that's what brake fluid does. It attracts moisture, it absorbs moisture. So if you fit that rubber seal in that groove, when it's been coated in brake fluid, you'll find that will corrode very quickly. So what I do now, as a matter of practice, when I put brakes together, is I use red rubber grease. I don't use hydraulic fluid on any of these components, because it accelerates corrosion. And what you've got to remember is, when you're taking corrosion out of these grooves, you've got to be real careful not to damage the grooves, because if you damage the grooves, the caliper's going to leak. So you don't want to have to be cleaning them out too often. So I've found over time that if you use red rubber grease rather than soaking them in brake fluid before you assemble it, not only does it increase service intervals, but you find you get less corrosion in the grooves as well. Okay, quick top tip for you. So without further ado, we'll put some rubber grease on this seal. There's two particular sizes of seal in these calipers. I mentioned earlier on there's a dust seal, which is what I've got in my fingers now, which I'm applying the grease to. And there's also a main seal. Well, the dust seal goes in the top, like so. That was very easy, wasn't it? A bit too easy. Got a cloth to wipe my hands on. It would have been too easy, that, wouldn't it? Right, so that now has got red rubber grease on it, that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll squidge that around in that groove, and hopefully that will help to combat corrosion. Right, now you'll notice that the main seal, I'll put them side by side for you. That one there is the dust seal, that one there is the main seal. Okay, you can tell by size that they're different, but also you can tell by the fact that the dust seal has got a groove in it. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a groove on the inside. The main seal hasn't, it's flat. Okay, so we've got our dust seal in there. Let's put our main seal in, coat it in red rubber grease again. And that goes in the lower groove. You can put these in any order you want, I suppose. I don't suppose you have to put them in particular in the order that I'm putting them in. But there we go. Right, now let's do the other side. Exactly the same. Let's put the big seal in first this time. Coat that in rubber grease. Put it in the lower groove. Like so. And the little seal. Let's use its proper term, the dust seal. There we go, they're going very, very easily. You don't need any amount of strength or technique to get them in the groove. That's one side done. Wipe the red rubber grease off after. Let's do the other side. Okay, again, you've got two grooves in this side. Both sides at caliper are the same. It's a 4-pot caliper, what they call a 4-pot caliper, which means it's got 4 cylinders on it. Red rubber grease everywhere, look. Yummy, yummy. Right, let's pop that in there. It's quite difficult to clean the corrosion out of grooves on brake calipers. I use a Dremel with a very tiny brass rubber drill. Don't, whatever you do, use a steel one, because a steel wire... what did I say there? I said that wrong, didn't I? Let's start again, shall we? When you're cleaning grooves out on brake calipers, don't use a steel wire brush. Use a brass wire brush. That's what I was trying to say. If you use a steel wire brush, you'll find that the parts of the steel will rub off. You may end up with bits of wire and that embedding itself in the aluminium, and that will cause corrosion. And also it will damage the aluminium. It will gall it. I don't know if you've heard of galling. It's when it takes the surface of the aluminium off. Right, there we go. So that's our seals fitted. There's not a right and a wrong way up. They're the square seals, so they're going either way. Cross section, I mean. They go either way, so it doesn't matter. But you've got two. There we go. Right, pistons. Stainless steel. Again, I put a smearing of that on there. And that should go in there very, very... If you have to force it, you're doing it wrong. Right, there, and in she goes. There we go. Seal number 2. Just a smearing, nothing more, nothing less. And she's in. That's that one done. Right, next one, this one. Just a smearing. Like I said, this isn't the way, it's just my way. And it works, I've found it works. I've never had a problem, so you can make of that what you will. Next, get that one in there, like that. There we go, that's our pistons fitted. Right, I've got grease on my fingers, so what I'm doing is I'm just greasing that surface there. We'll grease the surfaces on both calipers, like that. Right, he's mad, this lad loves red grease, he's crackers. No, there is a reason behind that. There is a reason behind it. The reason behind it is, when you put these together, these aluminium surfaces are raw. When you tighten the bolts up, there will be a microscopic gap between the two faces. Moisture will get in. Moisture causes corrosion. So what we do is we put a little bit of rubber grease on it, smearing the rubber grease, and when you tighten the bolts up, the surfaces come together and squeeze the excess grease out, and you end up with a kind of bit of protection against that moisture ingress. So it just, I don't know, it just, I suppose it, anti-corrosion, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it. Anti-corrosion, there we are. Right, so our two halves of the caliper can now be brought together. We have two seals. Let me just Get the excess grease out of there, because that's where your fluid comes through. There and there. Not that it'll matter when I bleed it, it'll force any detritus out. Right, so you have 2 rubber seals. Let's put some grease on them. 1. 2 rubber seals. Can you see that? Okay, 2 rubber seals, 1 there and 1 there. Right, when you bring the 2 halves of the caliper together, well, actually what I should do, I've done that wrong, haven't I? I should put them on that side, then like that. Then when I lift that side onto there, the seals don't fall out. Right, that's it. That's ready to go together. Let's just wipe the excess off there. Look, I'm a right mucky pup, aren't I? Right, there we go. Just to make it look tidy, that's all. There we go. Right, so let's bring the 2 halves together, like so. You've got to be real careful here. Make sure you don't disturb them rubber seals, because if you disturb them rubber seals, when you clamp it together, they sit in a recess. You can see that recess there. And if they slip out of that recess when you clamp them together, obviously you're going to damage the seal. So we'll put that together. Like so. Okay. Now, to help prevent galling, when we wind these stainless bolts into the aluminium of the caliper, put a little bit of copper slip on, help to stop the galling. Right. 1, 2. Right, they didn't have any copper slip on, so we'll put a drop of copper slip on them. A drop, is that such a thing? A drop of copper slip? I don't know. A drop of copper slip. I don't think I'm spending too much time in this garage on my own. Anyway, here we go. 1, 2. Right, snip them up. They have a torque setting. These bolts, the torque setting for them bolts is 15 foot-pounds. So what I shall do is, I shall quickly take this over to the bench with the torque wrench, to the vise should I say, to the vise, let's get it right. Clamp that in the vise and torque it up. Okay, back again. You can see, there, the grease has squeeged out, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. Now we should have some kind of protection against corrosion on those faces. Give that a wipe down. There we go, that's 1 caliper assembled. We do have a grease nipple that goes in there with a rubber boot on it. Worry about that later. We have a pin that holds the brake pads in place, which goes in there. There we go. And we have the spring retainer, which goes on there. Okay, I'm not going to put that on because this needs bleeding, and I'm not going to bleed the brakes with the brake pads in. I've made my mind up, because if fluid, when you hold the caliper the right way up, which is on camera, that way up, when you're bleeding the brakes and you're taking fluid from here, if fluid dribbles down inside and goes all over the brake pads are scrap. So what we'll do is we'll fit this, bleed it, make sure it's all alright, then fit the pads. Okay, so that's that more or less done. There's the 2 mounting bolts for it to hold it on the fork leg. That's it. 1 caliper done. Okay. Thank you for watching. Back in a bit. Okay, back again. Yeah, rear caliper this time. All cleaned out, grooves cleaned. Yeah, bit different to the other one. It's only got one cylinder. It's got a single dust seal and a single main seal. There's your main seal. There's your dust seal. Okay, grooves are cleaned out, we're all raring to go. Right, without further ado, let's put some rubber grease on it. Okay, that's the main seal. Okay, now the dust seal. There we go. Now you can see there, I'll get you a close up, there you go. Main seal and dust seal, plenty of rubber grease. Right. Piston. And in it goes. There we go. If you're having to use excessive force when you fit your pistons, then something's wrong. The seal's not in right, the groove's not cleaned out properly. They're all symptoms of a tight fitting piston. But your piston should just literally be a sliding fit. There should be no excess force required when you fit it at all. Okay, so we've got our hydraulic fitting on the back. We'll put that in, stop muck getting in. There we go. Bleed nipple with a dust cover. There we go. Right, so this caliper's a bit different to the other. This is a sliding caliper. Okay, and what that means is this caliper goes on this mounting bracket and slides on them two pins. So what we have to do is we have to put grease on them pins, and they're going rubber boots. Right, now then, we're not going to use rubber grease for that. And the reason for this is because red rubber grease is a little bit gloopy and a little bit thick. So what we use is silicone grease, which is a bit like Vaseline in texture. Okay, that won't make the rubber rot, it won't expand it, it won't do any nasty things, it won't react, it shouldn't react with the rubber because it's rubber silicone grease. Right, so first things first, we need to get that into there. Right, so what we'll do is we'll get our clean screwdriver and we'll put a little bit of silicone grease on the inside of there. Again, this is another area that gets neglected. These sliding pins on these motorcycle brake calipers are notorious for sticking. Absolutely notorious, and one of the biggest problems I see whenever I do a service on bike brakes is that hole there where the guide rubber fits gets full of corrosion. You get moisture trapped between the rubber and the aluminium. The aluminium corrodes, and it kind of, I don't know, I can't explain how it does it. It kind of expands and froths up, and that causes the rubber to crush onto the sliding pin and restricts its movement, and that prevents the caliper from sliding on its pin. I'll show you what we do with that. We'll put it on an Allen key, yeah, and then we gently ease it in like that, and that's it. That's how easy that is. Okay. So now that's in place, see if I can get a good shot of this because it's difficult, it's quite hard. Right, so that goes on there like that, yeah? So we need to put silicone grease on that, and we need to put that rubber boot on there with some silicone grease on. Now, I've been doing this for, messing with bikes for years, and I find that sometimes when you're doing out, see that rubber seal goes on there like that, sometimes less is more. So we'll just put a smearing on there and a smearing on there, and like I say, sometimes I think less is more. and then that goes like that. See how that slides into there, and the rubber boots locate. Well, it says in theory. Right, that rubber boot needs to go over that lip. If it doesn't go over that lip, you'll have an ingress of moisture and you'll have corrosion. So it's not playing, is it? Number of times I've done this and they just drop into place, and first time you put a camera on it, it doesn't. There we go. So what you've got is you've got your caliper slides on them pins like that. Yeah. Close up if I can. Right, that's how it should be. There should be no resistance to movement there. There should be no tightness. There should be no, what's the word I'm looking for? Restriction, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for. That should be a sliding fit. If that's not sliding easily like that, get it in shop. Come on, man, frame. If that's not sliding easily like that, then you've got a problem, and you need to sort that problem out, because what happens is when you apply the brake, it's pulling on one side of the disc and not clamping evenly on it. Right, another thing to note about these calipers that people seem to miss or seem to get wrong is that clip. That's just the shim that goes behind the pad. Right, now you'll notice it's got a groove in it there. Well, that needs to go to the fixed side, which is the top, so it goes in that way around. Let me just get that in place and then I'll show you. Like that. It goes in that way around with the groove towards the fixed side, because that pad that sits up against there sits on that spring like that and doesn't move. This side of the spring as the pad that moves. It slides with these it slides with that mounting. And that's it, that's all there is to it. And there's our retaining pin for our pads that goes in there, like that. And then we have a circlip. I'll pop this circlip on with pliers and then I'll show you where it is. It's not a circlip, it's an R-pin. I keep calling things by the wrong name, don't I? There we go. You can see it in there. You've got your R-pin there. Goodness gracious me, I'm like a man made of man today. There's your R-pin. There's the pin that retains the pads. That's the spring clip that keeps the pads in the correct position. Everything's fitted now, so that can actually go on the bike. That's it. Well, thanks again for watching. Another addition to the to get another step closer to getting the bike on the road. Thank you very much, folks. See you in the next one.